And for those who enjoy this channel and would love to support us financially, please feel free to hit that donate link. We'd greatly appreciate it. God bless.
You've got G-Man and Kent are kind of in the same group, right? They don't really bring up specific science, even creation science, quote unquote. But like Standing for Truth and like where I'm at, they've got a lot of stake in, like, you know, replacing Darwin, the Nathaniel Jeanson fiasco. That no. You know Nathaniel Jeanson? He's the guy who
never heard of him.
You're gonna have a ball. You're gonna have a ball. Nathaniel Jeanson, when he was trying to get his mutation rate, because right, he's basically looking at mitochondrial DNA and trying to prove that mitochondrial Eve lived 6,000-ish years ago.
Yeah, I was reading a paper today that called that, and what was it? It was some kind of egregious error, because it was supposed to be a range, the highest and lowest. You're supposed to get a moderate in the middle, and I can't remember the way they described it, but I remember just saying that they came up with a figure that if you do it really, really wrong, it could be so far off base as to be 6,000 years.
Right, and the problem was two very quick ones. One, to get his mutation rate, he used dyads instead of triads, which you require a mother, a daughter, and a grandmother to get like an accurate germline mutation rate. And if you have a dyad, it can always be somatic. You don't know for sure. But more egregious is for his generation time, right? He needs a really short generation time, even with that completely off-base mutation rate, to fit it into 6,000 years. So he goes to this 1970s paper on average age of birth in Central Africa, and he finds that 30% of people, 30% of young women were like between the ages of 15 and 18 when they gave birth. 30% of those surveyed, mind you. So he just uses 15 as a generation time. He uses the lower end of a 30% figure as the universal for the entire technical paper. And you're looking at that and you're like, oh my God, you would lose tenure. Like, as impossible as it would be, you would lose tenure if you put trash like this out into the world.
Rational Mind ask, I have a question for Jeanson. You cite pedigree studies to get your mutation rate. In one of your papers, you mentioned that you can't be sure if you're getting gametic or somatic mutations. In the book, you don't mention this important caveat. Why not?
Good. So this is a very helpful question for a number of reasons. One is if you Google like Jeanson mutation rate, you'll come across the Filthy Monkey Men blog, where they basically imply I've confused, and Herman Mays actually has a comment on that from April, re-asking a question. You can see him there, where they're saying I'm confusing the somatic mutation rate with the germline mutation rate. So that really what I'm detecting in mutation in this particular study. Let me back up for a sec. You can see this all documented in my papers, the references there, and get the primary literature. But one of the main studies that I was using in this particular example was a massive study of Sardinians and their mitochondrial DNA, and I was deriving a mutation rate from that. And this Filthy Monkey Man says Jeanson missed this point. Well, actually, another example of people not reading what I write, I give that exact caveat in my paper from 2015. So the testable hypothesis that people don't read our literature is once again fulfilled. And so I appreciate the question, because it shows that this person's actually read literature. So why didn't I give that caveat in the book itself? There's 4 reasons why. Number one, if you look again at the history of the papers I published, there's sort of 2 sets of mainstream mitochondrial pedigree mutation rate studies. The first set, there's 12 or more of them, I think. Look at the D loop. It's just a subset of the mitochondrial DNA. Those are germline, because they're looking at multi-generation pedigrees. You can look up all that literature. It's publicly available. Some of it's behind paywalls, but anyway, it's out there. And that gave a mutation rate. One mutation, it's 1 times 10 to the minus 5th mutations, I think, per base pair per generation. The second set of mainstream papers looks at the entire mitochondrial genome. And there I took all the data, and it came out basically the same, 0.95 times 10 to the minus 6. It's basically rounded to the same number. So there's, across multiple studies, a strong agreement. Actually, there's 5 reasons I didn't get the caveat in the book. So the first one is there's agreement between these 2 sets. Second is, the paper wasn't aware of 2016, Mark Stoneking's lab, one of the leaders in mitochondrial DNA. He's got a paper, I think it's Genome Research 2016, like 228 Dutch pedigrees. There he measures the effective, he measures the mitochondrial bottleneck. And if you look at coalescent theory, you'll find out that the bottleneck size is equivalent to the population size. And there's a whole lot. So John Perry didn't get a chance to get into this last night, but actually what happens in mitochondrial DNA is there's a mutation, there's heteroplasmy that drifts to fixation. Anyway, if you know the bottleneck size, that's an indirect way of getting the mutation rate, and it gives basically the same answer as those other two. Thirdly, or fourthly, whatever number I'm on now, this leads again to testable predictions about dating the transatlantic slave trade. That's basically a mutation rate-free study. It's looking at branch length ratios, which is effectively a substitution rate measurement. This is giving, and anyway, it'd be a whole other discussion presentation to discuss that. Hopefully there'll be a paper that comes out this fall. But that's in agreement with it. Plus, lastly, and this is one of the things I point out in the comments, you can see one of the in the comments of that Filthy Monkey Man study. In the book, I go through multiple other species that give a similar answer. So the fact that it gives consistent answers across these multiple independent data sets, it's leading to testable predictions that are working. That's given me confidence that, in fact, we probably are looking at germline.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
So it's all completely made up because all of this creationism is based completely on lies. Absolutely.
100%.
I spend more time pretending to be learned than actually learning.
For all those who appreciate the work that we're doing here on Standing for Truth, please hit that subscribe button because we are just getting started.